Okay, this is kind of a look at what people have been dealing with and what specifically Fox 4's James Rose and his photographer had to deal with driving this evening. James is at UNT in Denton. All right, what have you seen, James?
Well, I've seen wave after wave after wave, 3 waves of high winds, hail, and heavy rains blow right through this exact same area. Now, take a look at some of these pictures. This is some of the damage that happened at the freshman dormitory, West Hall, on the UNT campus. Portions of a roof were blown off into a parking lot, crashed and smashed into some of the cars, and then there's also some trees that were blown down in this area. Thankfully, no one was hurt. I spoke to a number of freshmen here on the campus, and they said they were absolutely terrified. Some of them knew there was a storm coming, others did not, but they were forced to huddle together downstairs in the lower middle part of the building and kind of ride the storm out. But they were telling me how scary that was, and the video you're seeing now is photographer Kevin Staples and I driving in this literally blinding rain and hail, and you know, that's why there's flash flooding as well. This was coming down hard, heavy, and very fast. I mean, we absolutely had to just pull over and stop at one point. It was really a lot to deal with, and the winds were changing from a variety of different directions. As the storm, the last wave, blew through here, we followed that storm east on 380 from 35, heading east toward McKinney. Got about halfway. I did not see anything that looked like tornado damage or even straight line winds. It was still daytime as we drove through there. But that's the area where the funnel clouds blew right through this area. So again, spotters reported funnel clouds. We can't confirm if there were any tornadoes that touched down at this point. Steve and Heather.
So James, what's the plan as folks move into tonight? Doing some cleanup? I'm curious about that. Also curious about power outages, if you've seen any in that area.
Don't see any power outages anywhere around this area. That dormitory on the UNT campus, West Hall, was perhaps the hardest hit, if you want to call it that. A few broken windows and a number of cars damaged by hail and trees knocked down on the campus. But they quickly cleaned all that up, and I can tell you, life is returning to normal out here. It is a lot cooler and a whole lot calmer.
Yeah, they had a rough evening.
I was just thinking, the freshmen, James mentioned talking to some freshmen. If they're new to the state, they have never been through a severe weather spring. Welcome to Texas.
And this is it. It's scary. Classes, have you heard classes, everything a go for tomorrow, James?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything to the contrary, and you know, as much as they might like that, you know, several of them told me that, you know, they were studying and weren't paying attention to the weather, but they did hear those sirens go off, and they tell me they were going off for about 30 minutes. And for many of the kids who hadn't heard those sirens before, that can be a terrifying thing to hear, especially when you look out the window and see nothing but blackness, and then heavy rains and high winds, and then the hail. It's a very scary time.
It is, but
for these folks, but they learned a powerful lesson about Mother Nature today.
Yeah, absolutely. The RAs, though, get the kids in the dorm hallways, and they get them safe and protected. All right, James, thank you.
There's Melissa. She spent part of the evening hunkered down, too, with students. Melissa.
Yeah, Steve, you know, I joined them inside just a few feet away from me here at this hall at TWU. I can tell you that just a few hours ago, I couldn't possibly be standing here because, seriously, my life probably would have been in danger. Those storms moved through very quickly, as hard as they possibly could, here in the city of Denton without causing serious damage or loss of life. Let's take a look at some of the video that we shot earlier this evening. Students and teachers were hunkered down inside TWU's Pioneer Hall for what seemed like an eternity. It got worse with each passing minute. They heard those hailstones beating on these skylights overhead, and I was with them. None of the glass broke. But if it came down any harder, I got to tell you, it sounded like it was about to. Moments before, the telltale sirens were heard, and that marble to quarter-sized hail came raining down. Some who took shelter were calm, but others were terrified because, as James said, just hours before, the baseball to softball-sized hail did this to one woman's back windshield.
I'm nervous and scared watching I was nervous and worried about the man who was coming to pick us up in the van, but he did make it, and he's at the Best Western waiting off the storm, so he did make it. I was worried about him, and we couldn't get a signal here to reach him.
she wasn't alone. About every 10 spaces here in this parking lot outside TWU's Pioneer Hall, again, they look like this, these gaping holes where windshields once were, each the shape of that hailstone that happened to smash right through it. Back not live now at this parking lot. You could see over my shoulder these cars behind me in the distance. They're covered either with a plastic bag or plastic wrap. In between these storms, some of the owners of these cars, they would run by, try to cover up their cars best as they could. A lot of these folks are kids. A lot of these, cars are owned by students. And one girl was so upset because she paid for the car herself. She called it her baby. And it was so devastating to her to see this damage to this vehicle. She does have insurance. That's a good thing. But again, Steve and Heather, high deductibles that they're going to have to deal with. So the good thing, again, was that it was stuff. It's material things. Nobody was hurt here in this parking lot. And that could have been a different story had they not gotten to shelter in time.
And that's exactly the way you have to look at it.
Yep.
It's just stuff that can be taken care of down the road.
Melissa Cutler and Denton, thank you at TWU.